Hello, friends and neighbors. Welcome to today's 220-1101. That is the Core 1 A+ study group. It's our pre-show. That's why I don't look like I'm really 100%, but I sort of am. We are recording. This is my chance to really confirm that. Let's see. I've got recordings going down here. Cameras look good. Right across up here, you can see the row of cameras that I switch from back and forth. Lights are on. Cameras look good. I think we're in pretty good shape. Hello, chat room. I have not popped out the chat room. Let's bring up the stream help. Let's pop it out. Pop out the chat. Pop out the chat. Pop out the chat. There we go. That's working. That looks good. What else? What else is going on? Oh, I can see myself. We can pause that. I can see myself here. I don't need to see myself on the computer. Everything else appears to be in fine shape. So here we are. I guess I could put up the link so that you can put your virtual push pin into our map. Wherever you happen to be, you can go to professormesser.com/QA. If you are watching this in the replay, do keep in mind that that particular link is not going to be available for you. So sad. You have to be here live. If you want to know when we're going to be here live, you can always check the calendar, professormesser.com/calendar. Hello, chat room. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out with us. We've got some great questions coming up in this first hour. Questions, brand new questions every time we do a study group. So I have brand new questions for you. And then I have, in the second hour, just open space. I didn't plan anything because you are the one that gives me the questions for the second half of the live stream. And if you want to know where to submit your question, use that same link right here behind me, professormesser.com/QA. You can submit questions or you can submit your answers once I bring up a question. Right now we have this push pin. You can sort of see it over my shoulder here. I probably could even zoom up on it for you. So you can see we got people checking in from all over the place, not just North America. We got some folks way down at the very bottom of South America and the very bottom of Africa. We've got folks in Europe and Asia and all over the place. Thanks for being here, everyone. We've got a lot of great material for you today. We can talk all about A+. We can talk about certifications in general. We can talk about information technology. We're having a fantastic time. Oh, Malk is here. Hello, Malk. Saw you before you got to the chat room. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. We got so much going on as well. There's a lot of activity right now because, as many of you know, there's that transition going on right now between the Core 1 and Core 2 1100 series to the Core 1, Core 2 1200 series. So we're right in the middle of that transition, or at the very beginnings of that transition. The transition won't complete until September. September 25th is the last day you can take the 1101, 1102. We will miss it. It will be history. It will be gone. It will be vapor on that date. Let's see. That looks pretty good. We've got everything we need there. I think we're in pretty good shape. Hey, Mal, good to see you. There he is in the chat room. Thanks for being here. We have folks that are there are folks here that have been here for years, hanging out with us, going through the live stream, learning a little bit about technology. Number of you this is your first time here, so thank you for joining us. We have there's always something going on. I've been struggling for the past month or so. I have a system set up, a virtual machine set up that I use for testing my website before I deploy patches and updates. Just good common sense. It's a good change control, right? To have something you can test on, make sure it works, and then deploy. But my test system stopped responding to DNS responses. So it would send out saying, how do I find this site? It would get a response and just ignore it. So that's why some people always say, it's always DNS. In that case, it was always DNS on that one. I ended up, how did I get by that one? I was going to manually download, move it over, and install it just so I get up to date But instead, I stuck in a couple of hosts lines for the ones that was trying to get to, upgraded what I needed to upgrade, and it is limping along okay. It managed to upgrade things over the network, and I was up and running. We tested some things, and I have a couple of weeks worth. Whenever I deploy updates to my website, there's usually more than one. There are usually multiples of those that need to be done. So what usually happens is that I will put the update onto the test system, try it out. I'll test everything. I'll update all of the software, make sure all of it works properly. Most of the time it does. And then I will update a piece of it at a time on the production site, just to be sure. Now, when I'm updating, of course, I'm making backups of the website. I'm making backups of the database. I could instantly revert everything back to the original configuration at any time. But that's just an example of some of the things I've been struggling with over the last month. Whenever you're making these DNS requests and you're not getting a response back, or you think you're not getting a response back, and you think, have I got the right DNS server? What am I doing wrong? It's just the normal part of troubleshooting. It's what we do every time. It's always a confusing, unusual, why is it happening mess until you figure it out. And oh, that's what it's. Ultimately, I never really did find out why. But there you go. That's folks have just joined are wondering, what is this? What are we doing? Why is the camera back? We haven't started yet. We start at the top of the hour with the live stream. So we're almost ready. We have less than a minute to go before we get started. This is the pre-show where it's really me just rambling on. It's really nothing more than that. It's me talking about whatever we're talking about. Whatever comes up, we will have this ready to go. So let's now, I do need to check. Okay, we've got that in the queue. We've got this set up. I think we're ready for a live stream. I think it's the top of the hour. Watch turned in 12 noon, indeed. So let's find our keynote. It's right there. Let's look for a green light. Oh, and it even gave me a little note saying, oh, are you starting something right now? I am starting something right now. We're going to hit the play button. That looks good. This looks good. Time for a live stream. Why don't we do that, everyone? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the May 2025 Professor Messer 220-1101. That is the Core 1A Plus study group. We have so much to go through today. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we are going to go through questions and answers that are directly related to the exam objectives of the Core 1 exam. These exam objectives we will talk about a lot during this live stream, and we stick to those objectives so that you know during this next hour, you will be learning topics that are directly related to the CompTIA exam. That's something that's pretty important. And if you are here live, you could also participate live. The way that you would do that is to go to professormesser.com/QA. That is the link that you will use for the duration of this live stream. And it will bring you to a third-party website that we use to be able to lock in your answers for questions that we have. So pop open a new browser window, head over to professormesser.com/QA, and you will be able to join us there. Now, to see if this works, to see if you're able to answer the question, I have put in here a question from a previous study group. So this is something that some of you may have done before. So this should be pretty good for you to step through and understand. This question is one that asks, a technician has been dispatched to configure a replacement internet firewall. Which of the following configuration connections should the technician plan for? And the different options are serial, 802.11, F connector, Bluetooth, and SC. Now, as many of you know who have been on these live streams before, please do not answer in the chat room. Please do not put any hints in the chat room. Instead, I want you to go to the link that you see on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your question. We will come back to this question in just a moment to see how well you do with this topic. Well, we've got a lot going on over on this side. For those of you that have already subscribed to our YouTube channel, you know this because in the past few weeks, there have been 50 videos that have been posted to our YouTube channel. There's a lot going on. And if you want to be a part of that and know exactly when we are going to update the next 50 videos, then you should subscribe to our YouTube channel at professormesser.com/YouTube. And you could, of course, click the bell to make sure you get all of the notification options you need to know the instant we put a new video on our channel. Of course, we have our daily A+ pop quiz questions available. You can catch those on our website. You can get an email directly to you. You can subscribe to that on our website, or you can find it on X/Twitter, whatever we're calling it these days. We also post them on Instagram and on LinkedIn. So there's many places you can go to find that particular information. And there's a lot of good information out there that we provide. And of course, when we're not doing this live stream, we're over on Discord. We have our 24/7 chat. There are people in there all the time. Thousands of people have signed up to our Discord. Why don't you join us as well over at professormesser.com/Discord. Also, during the first hour of this live stream, I will be giving you instructions and information on how you can earn a continuing education unit that you can apply towards a renewal, assuming that's the process you're using for renewal. There's many ways to renew your cert, but this is just one of the many ways. And you'll have to listen in sometime during this first hour for more details. You'll know when it happens. Trust me, you won't miss it. That's something that we'll talk about. The A+ exams, we currently have 2 different editions available of the A+ exams that you could take. You could take the 220 1101 and 1102. These were released in April of 2022. These are the 2 exams that retire on September the 25th of 2025. So if you have been studying for the 1101 and 1102, keep studying for it. You have plenty of time to finish these out. It's something that's going to be important as we get closer to that September 25th date. The exams themselves, there's 2 separate exams that you need to pass. Both of the exams are 90 minutes in length. We also have the 220 1101 and 220 1102 that have different scores that you need to earn. The 1101, you need to earn a 675. That's on a scale from 100 to 900. And for the 1102, you need to earn a 700, just a little bit higher on the 220 1102 on a same scale of 100 to 900. These exams have many multiple choice questions, but they also have performance-based questions. We'll talk in a moment about what those performance-based questions are. Now, for those of you that are familiar with the A+ exams, you know that a new edition of the A+ exams has also been released. These are numbered the 220 1201 and the 220 1202. So make sure you check those first 2 numbers, whether they are the 11 or the 12, because there are differences between these 2 exam versions. You need to pass both of these exams from the same edition, the same version. So if you are on the 1100 series, you take the 1101 and 1102. If you're working towards the 1200 series exams, you take the 1201 and the 1202. You can't mix and match. You can't take the 1101 and the 1202 or vice versa, because that doesn't work. You have to make sure you take both exams from the same series. These were released in March, just about a month ago. So these are relatively new, which means they're going to be around until about September of 2028. Plenty to go through there. And everything else on this page is exactly the same as the previous version. Same amount of time for the exams, same scores that you need to earn, same scale that you work on, same type of questions on the exam. Not much is different from that perspective. A lot of the questions that we talked to today will be very similar between both exams, but there are some differences. So make sure you're familiar with that. We do have a link on our website that describes the differences between the 1101 and the 1201, and another article we wrote that has the differences between the 1202, the 1102, and the 1202. So you've got that. Here are the release date timelines. We are right at the beginning of this overlap period between these 2. So if you've been studying for the 1101 and 1102, keep studying, because you have plenty of time. September 25 is when those exams finally go away. So you've got plenty of time to work through past both of those exams. And by the way, whether you take the 1101, 1102 or the 1201, 1202, you earn exactly the same certification. There's no difference in the final outcome. So don't think that because you're taking the 1200 series, you're getting a newer cert or a better cert. No, you're just getting the same cert. It's exactly the same. No differences there. So this is a situation where you cannot lose. You're a winner either way. So that's the good part about the way they work these deployments of a new version. They have a nice overlap period. You earn the same certification. It takes a lot of the pressure off. It's all about completing your studies at this point. This live stream will be available for replay immediately afterwards. You might even be watching this on our YouTube replay, and you will see that I also create a podcast distributed audio only version of these. You'll see a lot with the podcasts on professormesser.com/podcast for the A+ Network Plus and Security Plus study groups. If you're already on a streaming service that you like, if you're on Spotify, for example, just search for Professor Messer. You'll find that our podcasts are already there. They are uploaded automatically the instant I put them there. So you've got a lot of choices and options and things that you could do to get the information you need to pass your exams. The YouTube video is available immediately afterwards for our replay. If you wait about a day, you will notice that there are timestamps that have been included in the YouTube video description that are accurate to what we are doing during the rest of this live stream. They are there thanks to my marketing manager, Lori, who's watching this on the replay. Hi, Lori. She's going through this at 2x speed, I would imagine, and putting in all of these timestamps for you to guarantee that you are going to have the most accurate timestamps for all of our live streams. So that's something you can go back years to find all of those. That's at our YouTube video description at professormesser.com/YouTube. And as I mentioned earlier, once I'm done here, I'll be over on our Discord channel along with thousands of others that have joined, where you can study for your A+, Network Plus, Security Plus. You can open up your own A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus study channel and manage the study channel. You can invite people. You can manage who gets to talk in the channel. You can stream. You can ask questions. We have a great time over there, and a lot of smart people are hanging out on that Discord. Find out more at professormesser.com/Discord. Eventually, you will need to take your exam. So if you are in the U.S. or Canada or U.S. territory, you can get your vouchers at a discounted rate just by visiting the link on your screen, professormesser.com/vouchers. That is something where you don't need a special code. There's nothing you need to add to your browser. There's nothing interesting you have to type in. They're just already discounted. Could not be more simple than that. Yeah, this is also, if you get the voucher from my site, not only are you saving money instead of buying it on the CompTIA website, but I'll give you a little bit extra with this. You get a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook. This is a list of tips and tricks that I put together. When I take my CompTIA exams, this is the way I study. These are the things I do during the exam to get the most number of points possible for that exam. That's something that's included for free that you can't get anywhere else at professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's now go to the question we asked earlier. And this question asks, a technician has been dispatched to configure a replacement internet firewall. Which of the following configuration connections should the technician plan for? So these would be the connections used for configuration of the replacement internet firewall. Would it be serial, 802.11, F connector, Bluetooth, or SC? A number of you have answered. So I'm going to close the poll to see how we did with this one. 56% of you say the answer is serial. 32% of you, almost a third, say the answer is 802.11. 8% said SC. We also have 4% that said F connector, and 0% said Bluetooth. Sadly, Bluetooth would be a fun way to work on these different types of systems that we work through. The F connectors that are an interesting choice. We had a few people, 4% of you chose that one. F connectors are extremely useful if you have connections that are for a cable, a coax cable coming in. Those are very common to work through. But we also have other options on here like SC. That's a fiber type connection that is not often used for the configuration connection on a new device like an internet firewall, a switch, a router, or something else. You have to have some type of common interface where you can plug into that device and begin configuring it get it up and running, assign it an IP address, configure different options inside of the device. That is something that requires a different type of connection. And usually these devices don't have 802.11 turned on by default. That would be wireless connectivity. That's not usually how we are plugging in to configure these devices. Normally, it would be your serial connection. Indeed, 56% of you, the majority of you, answered that question as serial, and that is what you would use. Serial connections are incredibly useful to be able to work on the details of your exam. In fact, I have right here, there's one type of serial connection. This is sort of the old style serial we used to plug into with the DB9, or I guess more accurately, it's a DE9, but we just tend to call it a DB9. The most common new form of serial connection is, it's in the name, USB, is a universal serial bus. It's sort of the upgrade to the old style DB9 is the simple USB connector. So a lot of the more modern firewalls, routers, switches, and other devices you will configure will simply have a USB connection around the front. They have a Type A or a Type C. You can plug in, works great. Those are the things you need to know for configuring. And serial, of all of the 5 options on here, you will always find a serial connection on these devices because they allow you to get access to this device without worrying about wireless, without worrying about Bluetooth. You don't have to configure anything with Ethernet or IP addresses. You just plug in your serial cable, you go to a terminal screen on your device, and you're up and running. It really is that easy. So that is something that hopefully you got pretty well. A number of you did. 56% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. And I think that brings us to the next set of questions I have for you. We've gotten through our rewind question of the day, but as many of you know, on the actual exam, you get more than simply multiple choice questions. This one here is a multiple choice question because there's a question and there's simply 5 answers to choose from. If you didn't know the answer, then you probably could guess at this. And if you did guess at it, you had a 20% chance of getting it right. That's a pretty good percentage. If there were only 4 options, which is relatively common on the exam, you got a 25% chance of getting it right. So now let's see if we can do something that is a different kind of question, because when you start your A+ exam, the first handful of questions you get on the exam will not be multiple choice. No. You will not be making guesses. CompTIA wants to see if you really know your exam objectives. So they're going to ask you questions in different ways. Those questions could be a drag and drop question. They could put you at a command prompt and ask you to perform a function. They might be, you're pulling things down from a menu and making selections. There could be some where you're putting things in a particular order. Could be a matching question. Just any way that is not multiple choice. But as long as you know the exam objectives, you will do fine. And that really is the key when working through these, is knowing your exam objectives. As long as you know the objectives, in my mind, it really doesn't matter how they ask the question. You can simply answer whatever it is that they are asking for. So I have for you today, as we do on our all study groups, the first new question of every study group is a performance-based question. So the performance-based question I have for you, this one's more of a visual one. So if you are watching this live, you can participate, or watching on the replay. If you're listening in on the podcast side, this one is not going to work very well for you, because this one is a question that asks, what connects to these interfaces? What would we connect to on these interfaces? Let me see if I can move myself out of the way there so you can actually see what these different interfaces are. And as you can see on the screen, I have for you a motherboard, just a simple motherboard here. I have 5 different arrows pointing to things on this motherboard. And I'm not asking you what the interface is. I am asking you what connects to these interfaces. Now, if you want to answer the question, I'll quickly put this up so that you can see what the link is. Go to professormesser.com/QA to be able to answer this question. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. You want to go through this list with professormesser.com/QA and simply put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a rather unusual performance-based question because most of the time on the exam, they give you a list of items that you can drag and drop into the appropriate answer. This is not that way. This is just a fill in the blank. I made it a little bit harder. So you're going to have to fill it in with what you would connect to these interfaces. I'm seeing a few messages coming in where they're telling me what the interface is. That's not what I asked. That's not what I want to know. I know what the interfaces are. I want you to tell me, what do I plug into that interface? That's what I'm looking for. And in some of these interfaces, it could be more than one thing. I'll accept whatever fits in that particular scenario. If you can fit it into that interface, I'll take it as a correct answer. So see if you can plug whatever it is that you're looking for into that connection, and you'll be able to tell me a lot of, now we're getting some answers in here. People saying, well, I could plug this in. I could plug this into here. I could plug this into there. Fill it in with what you think it might be. This should be a pretty good one to be able, not asking for a cable type, not asking for a connector type. I'm asking, what are you plugging in here? This is also a very common theme with the exam, by the way. The CompTIA exam doesn't care so much that you know what the name associated with an abbreviation might be. It doesn't care that that you know that a SATA has a particular set of words associated with that abbreviation, but it does expect you to know what you would do with that. In fact, we often do that in the industry. We often know a lot of abbreviations. Sometimes we forget what those abbreviations stand for, but we know what that thing does. When somebody says, oh, we need that SATA thing, you'll know exactly what they're talking about. Oh, they need that piece that they're putting through. So that is exactly where we want to focus with this question is, what do we connect to that interface? So we'll have to see how we do with this one. And then we'll answer some of your questions about performance-based questions and how you grade a performance-based question and how this works into all of that. So what do you connect? There's an interface on number 1. What do you connect to that interface right here? What do you plug into that? You tell me. Number 2, what are you plugging in to that connection? Number 3, down here, what do you plug into those? Number 4 is right here in the middle. What do you plug into that one? And there's this big fat connector on the bottom. What do you plug into that one? I want to know what that one happens to be. Now, it would help if you knew what the interface was so that you could sort of step through what you would then plug into it. It's sort of a 2-step question without asking you about the first step, just so we break through that. We've got a number of answers in, so let's now step through each one of these, and I'll tell you what I put down for each one of these connections. What connects to these interfaces? We'll start with the number 1 on our list. That number 1 is pointing to this very small interface that's right here. In reality, that's a PCI Express interface. Normally, we think of PCI Express as being some of these larger interfaces, but one of the benefits of PCI Express is you can have different sizes depending on how much bandwidth or throughput is required for the device you're connecting to. So this is probably a PCI 2X, 2x connection. So it's this tiny little connector. So anything that would be on an expansion card is a good example of that. It might be a 1x. Might be a 1x or a 2x. It's hard to tell from where I am sitting. I think it's probably, is it a 1? If I'm looking at it, there's a 16. That's a 1, or it's the interface number 1, interface number 2, and then a larger. This is a PCI X16. I can't see the X. Does it say X1? Let's scroll. There we go. X1, and there's another X1. So now we can see them a little bit better if you're looking at those. Usually you will see messages on the motherboard itself that can give you a little bit more information about what that one happens to be. So this could be USB adapters. We're plugging in additional USB. Maybe it's an external network connection, maybe an additional Ethernet connection. So a lot of things that you could plug into that one and be able to work through the details. So hopefully that's something that you are familiar with already. Maybe a capture card. There's not a ton of bandwidth available on a 1X, although now that I'm thinking about it, I might have a 4K capture card that is a 1x card. Audio cards, I will accept, absolutely. So anything that will fit into a PCI Express 1x slot, that's what you would plug in there, some type of expansion card. Let's look at the next one on our list. This one, I think practically everyone got right. It is one of the most universal, well-known, perhaps in many ways obvious type of connectors on this. This big square connector on the motherboard is for our central processing unit, our CPU. So we're plugging into that CPU socket. This one happens to be, what is this, an AMD adapter? And it says right there, yeah, it even says it's an AM3 type of interface. That is the CPU socket type being used for this. So that's where you plug in your CPU. So I think most of us got that one well done. Next on our list, number 3 goes all the way across the motherboard to these small, there's 4 small little similar connectors right here on the far end. And I had to take my Photoshop and Photoshop out the word SATA that was right next to it. Really bold-faced letters saying SATA, but I didn't want to give you any type of information that could give you any hints on this. But that is exactly what those are. Those are SATA connectors. But again, I wasn't asking you what type of connector it was. I was asking you, what do you plug into it? And you would plug in a storage drive. It would be a hard drive. If you can run across one of those these days, there's still places we use a lot of hard drives. So we haven't quite gotten rid of our hard drives yet. A lot of SATA connected SSDs. If you're upgrading an older SATA device, you can remove that hard drive, plug in an SSD, and instantly get an upgrade on that older device. These days, we're doing different types of interfaces for storage, mostly M.2, but those are still around. Those are still a good option for plugging in a SATA connection. 4th on our list, this arrow is pointing to these black and blue connectors that are on the motherboard. That's for the memory modules, the RAM sticks, I would accept DIMMs for this. I would accept RAM. This is where we're plugging in the memory of our computer. The memory that's on this system plugs into 4 different slots that are on this motherboard. And because they are colored 2 different colors, it leads me to believe that this is one that can support multi-channel memory. So you can plug, usually it's into the same color. You plug 2 separate modules into the same color memory module slot, and it effectively doubles your throughput for memory access, which, by the way, memory access between the memory and the CPU is one of the most used thoroughfares inside of your computer. That is a very busy bus, sending a lot of information constantly on your computer. So anytime that you can increase that throughput, in this case, double the throughput, that's fantastic. So you might even want to look at your motherboard. Do you have multiple memory slots? Are they different colors? Check your motherboard manufacturer's documentation for your specific model to see if it supports multi-channel memory. You might be able to double the memory modules and effectively double your memory throughput. That's an easy upgrade, by the way, and a very noticeable upgrade on many systems. And lastly, number 5 points to this big block that's right here at the bottom. What will we plug into that connector? Well, that's our power connector from our memory module. So hopefully that gives you some things that can give you an option, an idea of where you might plug in some of these devices and components. And if you are configuring a new system, you're troubleshooting a motherboard, you're looking around at the motherboard itself, and you're looking at what's plugged in where, you can make a lot of interesting observations about what is configured in the system just by looking at your motherboard, what's plugged in, where those cables are going, and what happens to be there. So that's what we have. Question number 1, option number 1 is this PCI Express interface. This buy one connector is for an expansion card. We also have PCI Express by 16. If you have something like a graphics card that you want to install into this device, that's exactly where you would plug it in. You also have this is an older motherboard. You can tell because not only does it have PCI Express, it has the older traditional PCI interfaces as well. Not many motherboards these days are being produced with those. That would be a time we were sort of converting between both the PCI and PCI Express and kind of using them back and forth. Second on our list was the CPU. We can plug storage drives into our SATA interfaces. RAM goes into this memory module, these DIMM module slots that are on your motherboard. And that 24-pin connector at the bottom is indeed for power. There may be 20. Now it's 24-pin on that one for power. So you've got 5 different components to plug in. This is something you should be very familiar with because there could be situations where you are put in front of a motherboard and you have to determine what those interfaces are, what you would connect to them, or perhaps why it's not working. Maybe you want to build a motherboard. What do you plug in where? These are things you have to know, and it certainly helps you if you are troubleshooting. That's our performance-based question of the month. Hopefully this has given you some idea of things you need to know for the exam. Just another way to take the information you've already learned from the exam objectives and present it to you in a way that gives you a lot of flexibility on how you answer these questions. You do have to know these answers, something very important for this exam. Let's now move to some multiple choice questions. I have a multiple choice question for you that asks, an administrator has disabled TPM in the UEFI BIOS. Which of the following would be affected by this change? Would it be desktop personalization, printer badging, DHCP lease time, wired network connectivity, or full disk encryption? Got 5 options. Now, if you think you know the answer, please no answers in the chat room. Instead, you want to answer your question by visiting the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to answer this question. See if you know what this one happens to be. This is one where there are many different components inside of your system, many different things you need to know. This is something that you should be familiar with, and you probably are if you've done anything. Well, I don't want to give anything away yet. I'll give you some hints after we look at the answer. I guess they're not hints at that point. We're giving it away at that point. I'm not going to give you any hints while you're selecting the answer. You have to figure out what this happens to be. But if you want to take a guess or you happen to know the answer, go to the link on your screen, go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in the answer that's there. That should help. This is one where if you're working through the details of this, I think knowing these very specific components is important. But notice I'm not giving you full names of some of these components. A lot of these questions on your exam, and indeed a lot of the questions you will see today, is going to be questions that have abbreviations as part of the questions and perhaps even as part of the answers. You not only have to know what those abbreviations mean, you have to know how to apply them. So that's important as well. As always, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We will get to it in just a moment. Lock in your answer by going to professormesser.com/QA and see if you know what this answer happens to be. Well, let's see. We've got a number of you that have submitted your answers, so let's see what you chose for this one. An administrator has disabled TPM in the UEFI BIOS. Which of the following would be affected by this change? Is it desktop personalization, printer badging, DHCP lease time, wired network connectivity, or full disk encryption? Let's see what you chose, and we can see that the answers, a full 83% of you say the answer is full disk encryption. All the rest of the answers are single digits. 7% for desktop personalization, 7% for wired network connectivity, 4% for DHCP lease time, and then 0% for printer badging. So it's effectively 83% and everyone else for this particular question. This question was very specific to the TPM. That's what we were asking about. The TPM is the Trusted Platform Module. This is a module that is either built into the motherboard itself, or there's a separate module, a slot on the module where you can take an external TPM and plug it into the motherboard. And then that effectively locks it to that particular motherboard when you are using it. Inside of this TPM is a cryptographic processor. So already you know it's going to be used for some type of security or cryptographic functions. It also has memory inside of it, so it's storing information on the TPM itself. We also have additional memory that you have on here, so you can save information and store keys and store hardware information. They're all on there, but it is very protected. This is not something where you can hack around it or get into it, because there's some good stuff on here. There's some juicy things on this particular connection. Make sure you work through and are familiar with what these happen to be. This might help you as well as you're looking at a trusted platform module. There's another look of what these modules provide to you. Now, why would this be useful to have on your computer? Well, because it is a piece of hardware that we can base all of our very important cryptographic functions on. And one of the most important cryptographic functions on your computer is one that is used for encryption, especially encryption of your hard drive. One of the things you'll notice with Windows 11, it relies on you having a more modern version of a TPM version 2.0 inside of your computer so that you can use it. Now, one of the things you can't do is use that, take it off your motherboard and take it to another computer. Once you would lock it into a particular system, you can't move this around. So it's another important way to maintain the security of that TPM and being able to work through it. There are some other things you can look at in your BIOS, by the way, that tell you about the TPM. They'll tell you the type of TPM that you're using, whether it is enabled or disabled. You can even clear it out. You want to give this computer to someone else, you can clear the TPM. They effectively have a brand new TPM that they can use on their system. Those are important things to know as well when you're working inside your BIOS. Don't clear your TPM accidentally. That would be very, very bad. So don't go through that. That would not work well. But obviously, because this is used for cryptographic functions, it doesn't fit into using this for desktop personalization. It doesn't have anything to do with printers or lease time or wired network connectivity. This is used for full disk encryption. That's what we would use. So hopefully that's giving you some insight. I don't think a lot of you needed a lot of insight into the TPM and what you would do with it, but this is one of the most important parts of the cryptographic foundation of your computer, because everything sort of revolves around what we do with cryptography on these devices. And this is a very good way to secure your software and in some cases the hardware that's on your computer as well. You did very well with that one. Let's keep this going. You're doing so great with these questions. Let's do another question. This next question asks, a company's in-house development team is building a new application using the tools available on a cloud service provider. Which of the following would best describe this cloud model? Would it be SaaS, hybrid, IaaS, sandbox, or PaaS? Which I guess would PaaS. You're working through these. The question again asks, a company's in-house development team is building a new application using the tools available on a cloud service provider. Which of the following would best describe this cloud model? Is it SaaS, hybrid, IaaS, sandbox, or PaaS? It's got to be one of those, right? If you know the answer, or you think you know the answer, or you want to guess at what the answer might be, visit the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, to lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We instead want to go to the link on your screen. See if you know what this one happens to be. It should be a pretty good one to go through. Cloud is a big topic on the Core 1A Plus exam. That doesn't change. This is also a valid question. In fact, both of these so far have been valid questions for both the 1100 series and the 1200 series. So for those of you that are here live that might be studying for either one of these, so far all of these questions have applied to both of those exams. So I know we called it 1101 study group. It's sort of turned into the 1101, 1201 study group in that scenario. If we come across a question that doesn't apply between both of them, I will absolutely bring that up as we go through. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, a company's in-house development team is building a new application using the tools available on a cloud service provider. Which of the following would best describe this cloud model? Would it be SaaS, hybrid, IaaS, sandbox, or PaaS? We will close the numbers, close the polls, and see what the numbers happen to be. And you can see that we have a mix of different things. We did not get a majority on this one. We did get 49%, which I think is close enough for a majority, right? 49% say the answer is PAAS. We'll have to see if that's the case. 31%, though, almost a third of you say the answer is SAAS as the answer. We have single digits from there. 9% say IAAS, 6% say hybrid, and 5% say sandbox. So tied for last place effectively with 5 and 6% are hybrid and sandbox. So let's see what we think if PAAS was 49% of you. Well, yes, of course, that's what the answer is. That is exactly what we were looking for. Because we are building software, we are creating and developing software on a cloud provider's network. Whenever that happens, especially using the tools that they are giving us, that is effectively the definition of platform as a service. That's exactly what platform as a service means. Means that somebody else is providing the place to program. They're giving you this cloud server, and you can build applications on this cloud server. But one of the things that is useful, one of the things they provide, is a set of online building blocks. They give you everything you need to be able to answer these. So if you are someone who is looking to build an application, but you don't want to do everything from scratch, wouldn't it be nice if the cloud provider gave you modules that you could simply plug together on their cloud platform and you'd be able to create this application? That is exactly what you would be using for this. You're creating these building blocks to be able to create the application itself. This is something very commonly seen on things like Salesforce.com. They have an enormously popular platform as a service offering where you can log into Salesforce.com and then customize it in any way you would like. There are many people, if you look through the job postings out there, there's a lot of job postings where people are looking for Salesforce.com developers. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody to develop an application on this platform as a service infrastructure available from Salesforce.com. Salesforce.com also has a SaaS offering, a software as a service offering, where you don't really customize it. But that wasn't our question, of course. Our question said a company's in-house development team is building a new application using the tools available on a cloud service provider. That is the definition right there, a platform as a service. That's exactly what we use, and 49% of you got that one absolutely right. Software as a service, you're not developing anything. Imagine one of the most popular software as a service offerings out there are things like Google Mail. You don't develop Google Mail. You don't customize Google Mail. You don't have any input into the way that Google Mail works. You log in, you use the software, you log out. That's pretty much your job as far as developing that software happens to be. So software as a service would not apply in this case because we are using our development team and building an application. Software as a service does not apply there. Neither does infrastructure as a service, which is where you're effectively given a piece of hardware, you're given a CPU, some memory, some storage, a network connection, and you might even be given an operating system, but that's it. Nothing else. Everything else is up to you. You have to load your applications, you have to load your data, you have to manage that device. That would be infrastructure as a service. That certainly does not describe the question that we have in our list either. Hybrid is a type of cloud deployment where you would have both on-prem or internal type cloud services and public or external cloud services. We also have sandbox. That would be used if we were doing some type of testing. Nothing in this question had anything to do with testing. It all had to do with describing the cloud model, and sandbox is not a cloud model. It's something that's a little bit different between all of them. So hopefully, I think a lot of you did well on this one. 49% is a pretty good number. If you wanted a summary of what these cloud models really do, I have a breakdown of this in my A+ course. So you can see the differences between what does the client manage and what does the cloud provider manage. And you can see, for example, software as a service, the cloud provider is managing everything. Platform as a service, nope. You have to write the app, you have to manage the data, but they'll manage everything else. So hopefully that is something that can help you. Maybe if you're going through my course, you will be able to see that. That is the answer we were looking for. platform as a service. Most of you did really well with that one. Well done. Well, you can already tell we've gone through a lot of different topics already in this study group. We've gone through quite a bit. I've been talking quite a bit, but I'll try to get through all of these. But for example, a lot of you are saying that platform as a service, that chart that's there, that's a lot of good information. So maybe you want to use some of that information as you are going through your course. And if you are somebody like me that wants to have everything in one place, you want to have a summary of all of the text, all of the graphics, all of the details that are on this course, well, you've come to the right place, because I've taken everything from my videos and I put them into one single document. These are my course notes. So you can go through these course notes and understand exactly what options might be available for everything that you're working on. We have all of these course notes are based on, well, if I bring you back to this, there we go, are based on the information from my videos. And of course, my videos focus on all of the things you need to know from the exam objectives. So this is effectively a set of notes that are directly designed for the objectives. That's exactly what you need if you're trying to pass these exams. We have one available not just for the 1100 series. For those of you working on the newer version, we have a 1201 set of course notes as well. Notice I'm showing you both the digital one online and I'm showing you the physical version of this. These physical books can be also purchased on our website. I will create them, send them to you. Some of you were asking, hey, does it have that great chart in it that you just saw? Yes, it does. It's right there. It's in the set of course notes. This is the 1202 course notes. I don't know if I had that chart in the 1100 series class, did I? Might have come along later after that was done. Nope, I stand corrected. It wasn't there. So there's the 1101 course notes. I should have it on my screen on my front end in front of me too. So I should be able to find that, just so somebody asked about that in the chat. So there it is, the cloud models. There it is on the 1101 course notes. All of them are there. Plenty to see with this. If this is something you think might work for you, something to help you, it of course doesn't replace watching the videos. It doesn't replace reading a book or doing some hands-on or working through any practice questions, but it does consolidate everything you need all in one place. Find out more at professormesser.com/1101 notes to find out more about our course notes. Got plenty more. Let's go through more questions regarding, especially associated with the Core 1 exam. This next question asks, a client's desktop display shows a black dot near the middle of the screen, but this dot does not appear on their mirrored laptop screen. Which of the following would be the best way to resolve this issue? Would it be replace the desktop display, restart the computer, replace the HDMI cable, reinstall the video driver, or power cycle the desktop display? Which one would it be? If you think you know the answers, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Instead, you want to follow the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your question. We'll have to see what you think the answer might be. A client's desktop display shows a black dot near the middle of the screen, but this dot does not appear on the mirrored laptop screen. Which of the following would be the best way to resolve this issue? Do we replace the desktop display, restart the computer, replace the HDMI cable, reinstall the video driver, or power cycle the desktop display? I have to see what one of them might be. Also let you know that as we're coming up to the top of the hour, you can go to that same link on your screen, go to professormesser.com/QA, and you could submit questions for the second hour. So any questions you might have about IT or technology or certifications or anything you would like to ask, you can simply submit those using the tabs at the top of your screen when you visit professormesser.com/QA. I have to see what the options might be. This is definitely a display question. So we definitely have to know the display question on this one. And there's lots of ways to work with displays. Let's see what you think the answer is. This question again asks, a client's desktop display shows a black dot near the middle of the screen, but this dot does not appear on the mirrored laptop screen. Which of the following would be the best way to resolve this issue? Would it be replace the desktop display, restart the computer, replace the HDMI cable, reinstall the video driver, or power cycle the desktop display? What did you answer? Let's find out. 61% of you say you would replace the desktop display. 28%, a good chunk of you, say just power cycle the desktop display. That's all you need to do. 6% of you said reinstall the video driver. 4% said replace the HDMI cable, which is where I usually start. 2% of you said restart the computer. Power it off and back on again. Doesn't it fix every problem you would ever have? Well, not every problem. And it would not fix this problem, because this problem, a black dot in the middle of the screen, is a dead pixel. Dead, dead, dead. It is unwell. It is definitely not a well pixel. This is one that you're not going to be able to recover from. This is a hardware issue. This is not something that you can fix by replacing a cable or restarting a computer or restarting an application or by cleaning the screen. There's nothing you can do. Now, it could be something on the screen, I guess. Maybe there's just a little something on there. We could just clean off the screen. Maybe we fixed it. But if it's not something that's on the screen, then it's inside the monitor, which means the only way to fix this is to replace the monitor. I guess you could replace the internals of the monitor, but these days you're effectively swapping out the monitor when that happens anyway. So this would be a case where on your screen every day, everything looks okay, except that one dot that's always there. No matter what's showing on the screen, there's just always a black dot there that somebody's working through. That becomes a challenge if you're trying to work. You can always see it when it's there. So you do want to get your screen swapped out to be able to deal with that. That can be a challenge. And of course, a number of you have selected that one as the answer. 61% of you said, yeah, just replace the desktop display. That's what I would do to fix this particular problem. 28% of you said to power cycle the desktop display, but because this is a hardware failure inside the display itself, power cycling the display is not going to magically fix that one, unfortunately. Oh, that it would. 6% of you said reinstall the video driver. Video driver is not going to cause a single pixel to be black on a monitor, especially since we look at our laptop and the pixel is not black. So this leads us to believe that the problem is not something that is the same across both of those, such as a driver or software. Indeed, it's hardware, so replacing or reinstalling the video driver is not going to help you. That's simply a software replacement. 4% of you said replace the HDMI cable. And if this problem was one where the screen was blacking out and coming back, or it was pixelating on the screen at times, that could potentially be the HDMI cable. But a single pixel that is black on your screen all the time, that's not HDMI. That's not a problem communicating over that digital connection. So that's not going to help you either. And restarting the computer, although it is going to help 99.9% of the time, does not help in this situation. This is the very few times when restarting your computer is not the best option. It's not something we would use. So that is the answer we were looking for. The very top, replacing the entire desktop display. Hopefully it wasn't an expensive one, or maybe it's in warranty so that you can swap those out. Many display manufacturers have a warranty policy regarding dead pixels. So you should absolutely look through your warranty and see where they might mention that as part of the warranty requirements. Some manufacturers say, well, if it's just one, you're okay. If you have 3 or more, we will swap it out on warranty, that kind of thing. So make sure you check with your manufacturer to know what the options are for you. If you are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, this is what you would do to help get your certification that you've already earned and renew it. So you have to first have your certification to use this. One of the ways that you can accumulate another webinar category CEU is to follow these instructions. Go to the top or bottom of the Professor Messer website. Right there at the top, it says Contact Us. Click the Contact Us link. Brings up a form. Put in your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put May 2025 Core 1. And in the body of the message on the line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month: replace the desktop display. Those are your super secret code words of the month. replace the desktop display. Then you can add anything else you would like to that message, hit send. It shows up on my side. It takes me about a week to go through these, but I will send you back an email that certifies that you were here for a 1-hour webinar category CEU or continuing education unit credit. Those instructions again, for those of you that didn't catch it, go to the top or bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link, put in your name, your email address. In the subject line, put May 2025 Core 1 or something that I know it's the May 2025 Core 1 live stream. And then in the body of the message, put the super secret code words of the month, replace the desktop display. If I could say it, you could actually put it in there. Replace the desktop display. And that would be sent to me, and then I can send you back an email, hopefully within a week. Sometimes a little bit slower. Sometimes I do it sooner than I expected. We never quite know exactly what could happen when we do that. We've still got time for more questions, so let's do some more questions. Next on our list is this question that asks, a technician is replacing a laptop inverter. Which of the following would this resolve? Would it resolve a case where system will not boot, screen display is very dim, fingerprint reader not recognizing any user, wireless network not connecting, or touchscreen not recognizing a stylus? We have 5 things to choose from there. A technician is replacing a laptop inverter. Which of the following would this resolve? Would it be a system will not boot, screen display is very dim, fingerprint reader not recognizing any user, wireless network not connecting, or touchscreen not recognizing stylus? If you think you know the answer, follow the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Not sure how to ask it anymore. Not sure if you want me to ask it anymore. Not sure you're happy listening to me say it every time. But I keep trying to emphasize that we are indeed answering it online at the link you see here. Now, if you are watching on a replay, obviously, that's something that's a little bit more of a challenge. But hopefully you are familiar enough with the topics that you see here that you can lock in the answer either on the link you see here, or if you're watching on the replay, just keep in mind what you think the answer might be. And we will find out in a moment what we believe it to be. Folks in the chat room are even saying, I'm not sure what you're talking about. A laptop inverter. Aren't you just turning the laptop upside down? Is that what we're talking? That's not what we're talking about. That's not what it is. That is not a good hint at all. That's a bad hint because it has nothing to do with what we're working through. Hopefully you've got some familiarity with this. This is one of those questions, though, that, no, I'm not going to tell you any more of this. So we'll have to figure out what it happens to be. I don't want to give too much more away. Obviously, please no hints in the chat room. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, a technician is replacing a laptop inverter. Which of the following would this resolve? The system will not boot. The screen display is very dim. Fingerprint reader not recognizing any user. Wireless network not connecting. Or touchscreen not recognizing the stylus. All these are bad. What do you think the answer is? Let's see how you did. I'm going to stop this. 70% of you, that's a pretty good percentage, say the screen display is very dim. We have effectively a tie for second place. 14% say the system will not boot, and 13% say the touchscreen is not recognizing the stylus. 3% of you say the wireless network is not connecting, and 1% say the fingerprint reader is not recognizing any user. So 70% is a pretty strong number when you're talking about working with a inverter. So the inverter is part of the backlight of your monitor, your LCD display. As many of you are familiar with the LCD, the liquid crystal display technology, to be able to see the screen, there has to be a light behind it so that that light shines through the display and gives you this color representation that your eyes happen to see. You have to have that backlight, though. Liquid crystal displays can't create their own light. There needs to be some type of light behind the display. Imagine the lights that we're fitting on these laptops and desktop displays that are so small. They are so thin. when you look at the back of them. That's because a lot of the more modern displays use LEDs, light emitting diodes. They're very small. It's what we have in all of our lighting systems these days. We don't have big bulbs anymore. We have these tiny little bulbs, and that's what we have behind our screen. Those are so effective and efficient at providing power, and they use the same direct current or DC power that is provided by your laptop battery. But if you happen to run into an older laptop, especially one that is using a type of fluorescent backlight, this is prior to us being able to have these very popular LED. We have these more fluorescent backlights that we would use. The fluorescent backlights required AC. You have to have some type of alternating current. Well, the battery's giving us direct current, and we have to do this weird switch. We're taking alternating current from the wall. We're converting it into direct current for your computer. Yeah, but there's this one thing on the backlight that now needs the alternating current. Well, let's convert back to alternating current. We're effectively inverting the current. That's why we call it an inverter that provides us with that alternating current. And here's a picture of these little backlight inverters that we have on those types of displays. So these are the things that go bad. Usually plug in the display at the end of them, or the power source at the end of them, so they can provide information for the display. This is going to be something you don't run into a lot these days, but there are still laptops out there that are running CCFLs. You will still be expected to understand the technology, and you will still be expected to resolve that. So you have to know when one of these comes in, hey, maybe we can just swap out the inverter and solve that problem. And in our video, section 1.2 on the 1101 series videos, the one that says laptop displays is the one that gives you more information about that. And we do talk about troubleshooting it in these videos as well, so you can understand when is it that the display is broken and when is it that just the backlight is broken. How can you tell? We talk about that in the videos as well. So that is why an inverter is so important to some of these older laptops and older screens. And you, of course, knew that already because 70% of you said, the display is very dim. Well, I guess it is because your backlight isn't working. Sometimes you can take like a flashlight, you can point the flashlight at your screen, and the flashlight will show you enough of what's on the screen to be able to use it a little bit because it's effectively reflecting off the back part of the monitor. But you can at least see, oh, the screen is working. It's just not giving me any light. So it's got to be a backlight to be able to figure out those details. That is what we were looking to use. Hopefully some of you are familiar with that technology, using a laptop inverter. That is something, hopefully, probably, I'm trying to think if that's on the 1102 or the 1201, sorry, the next generation. I'm not sure. We'll have to look. Remind me to look at the end of the live stream, and we'll see if it's in the exam objectives. A lot of stuff's the same, but there are some things that have been dropped from the newer version. I just don't remember if it was. But we'll find out. I do have a little bit of time. I know we're at the top of the hour, but let's see if we can get another question in. Can we? I think we can. His next question asks, if I can get on the screen here. Here we go. There it is. A user is not able to connect to the wired network, and the technician has obtained a tone generator from their tool bag. Which of the following would be the technician's next step? Would it be locate the other end of the network cable, replace the user's RJ45 connector, punch down the cable run, perform diagnostics of the Ethernet interface, or capture all network traffic to the device? The question again asks, a user is not able to connect to the wired network, and the technician has obtained a tone generator from their tool bag. Which of the following would be the technician's next step? Would it be to locate the other end of the network cable, replace the user's RJ45 connector, punch down the cable run, perform diagnostics of the Ethernet interface, or capture all network traffic to the device? If you think you know the answer, use the link on your screen to answer this one at professormesser.com/QA. Yep, another number of you have talked about using those flashlights to see, can I see on the screen what's going on? I can't see. Yeah, that's a great test. I had a backlight fail on a LCD television. And it was easy to figure out because I could kind of see what was on the screen, but it's backlights that failed. But these days, these televisions that we're using are just so modular, you could just swap out a board. I ordered a new board on eBay. Somebody shipped me the board. I plugged in the television. Television's back up and running. Something easy to fix finally on my televisions. Because I didn't break it, didn't break the screen. We just had a failure of some kind on a board, and swapping the board out now gave power back to the backlight, and everything was back up and running. Let's see how you did. A lot of people locking in their questions very fast on this one. So this is one where I'm wondering, do we really know the answer, or is this one we're trying to figure it out? The question asks again, a user is not able to connect to the wired network, and the technician has obtained a tone generator from their tool bag. Which of the following would be the technician's next step? Would it be to locate the other end of the network cable, replace the user's RJ45 connector, punch down the cable run, perform diagnostics of the Ethernet interface, or capture all network traffic to the device? What would we use? Let's find out what you chose. We will close the poll, and 77%, another strong showing, says we're using this to locate the other end of the network cable. 19% say to perform diagnostics of the Ethernet interface. We also have 2%, really a three-way tie for last place. 2% say replace the user's RJ45 connector. 2% say capture all network traffic to the device. And 1% say to punch down the cable run. Well, if you're using a tone generator, you really have half of the formula here. You really have both a tone generator that you've configured and plugged into one side of a cable, and then you have an inductive probe that is used alongside this to find the other end of the cable. The tone generator, as the name implies, is putting a tone, a signal on that wire, and then you can use the inductive probe to find that signal. And you can, because it's inductive, you don't have to touch the copper directly. You just have to be somewhere around the outside of this. So if this is something that you've never seen someone use these, you don't know when you would run into a situation where you would run into a situation where you would use these all the time. When you're in an enterprise, there's usually a huge bundle of wires coming out of the ceiling and plugging into your infrastructure. There might be hundreds or thousands of wires that are coming out of that, but you need to find the one on the floor from that machine. How do you find it? If there's this huge bundle of hundreds of wires, we use a tone generator. And if you're watching my 1200 series videos, or even looking at my Network Plus videos, I demonstrate using one of these in the video itself. So you can actually see me testing cables as I'm sitting here to determine where is my tone generator. Do I still have it on I have it here somewhere. We'll find it in the after show. I'll pull it out, pull my tone generator out. We'll have a look at it so you can see someone working through the details of this. Very useful tool. We use it all the time when you're working through them. You can hear it in the video as well. You can see the lights flashing. You can hear it making the noise. And you can, on many tone generators, determine what tone it is. Is it just one solid tone? Is it a high-low tone? Is it a single flashing, beeping tone? You can determine on many of them what it happens to be. So locating the other end of the network cable is exactly what you would use with a tone generator and an inductive probe. 77% of you got that one right. We had 19% of you said perform diagnostics of an Ethernet interface. Normally that would be a loopback plug or a loopback cable to be able to do that. It would not be a tone generator. 2% of you said replace the user's RJ45 connector. Usually do that with a crimper, not with a tone generator. 2% of you said capture all network traffic to the device. You can do that with a protocol analysis tool. You might need a separate physical tap to be able to tap the connection, and then punch down the cable run 1%. Punch down tools are used for punching those down. That's what you would use. Hopefully that's given you some ideas of how you would connect to and troubleshoot one of these wired networks. And it is a very useful tool. Somebody in the chat room was saying, is this similar to maybe using one of those electrical breaker locators? Yep, the same idea. You would plug in a signal down where the outlet is, and then you can find the breaker in the panel as it beeps when you move the monitor device against it. Same type of idea, just for network cables though. Thankfully, low voltage. We don't have to worry about high voltage. Do not use your tone generator. Do not use your inductive probe on high voltage. Not designed for that. Do not ever connect yourself to any part of the electrical system. Always a bad idea. Well, as you've probably seen already, we have all of these free videos on our website. We have training materials and live events that we do, like this one. Absolutely free. Nothing you have to register for or lock yourself in, or nothing's behind a paywall for that. But there may be times when once you finish this, once you've watched the videos, once you've read your books, you've done some labs, you really want to know if you really, really understand what is expected of you on an exam. One of the problems I've seen online is that a lot of what you see online is information that is either outdated. They're using exam objectives from a previous version. It's incorrect. They're giving you the wrong answer from a question that's being asked. I'm looking at you, LLMs. You're just awful for practice questions. They are horrible to use for that. You really need something that has been written and designed to give you a similar feel and a similar structure to the actual exam. And so when I didn't find anything, I thought we need to make one ourselves. So I made a set of practice exams just for the Core 1 exam, just for the Core 2 exam. These are for the 1101 and 1102. There will be 1201 and 1202 practice exams books coming soon. So keep looking out for that. This is something that can help you because I wanted to give you a similar structure as well. So it has performance-based questions and multiple choice-based questions in the same document. And because we are here today, I thought, let's do a question from the book. Same rules apply. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We're just going to think about this one, though. We're not going to plug it in anywhere. The question here I have is question B78. You can't see it. This is on page 154. There it is, page 154 of my practice exam book. This is his practice exam B. The question is, a digital graphics department has been using a SAN to store their image files. The team now reports that all of the files on the SAN are no longer accessible. Which of the following should be the first thing to check on the SAN? Would we check the RAID array status, CPU utilization, input voltage, or cache hits? So you've got some things to look at there, some things to consider. Now, if you just want to know, is it A, B, C, or D, we have options for that. And one of the things I'm going to do, since this is a PDF, you can, of course, highlight things. You can, if you have a stylus, you can write on this. So you've got complete flexibility on how to use this. Nothing's locked down on this one. You have complete flexibility on this one and being able to work through it. And another thing that I have is I built into this the answers. You can page through, although we're on page 154, detailed answers on page 243. Well, instead of paging through a PDF, nobody likes to do that. That's just time consuming. I put links right into the book itself. So notice when you highlight over the details, it turns into a little hand. And if I click this, it goes to B78 and shows me this is B78. And here's the answer. It's A, the RAID array status. And I tell you why I believe that to be the right answer. Now, one of the challenges I found online especially is that I would get an answer wrong, but it didn't explain to me why the wrong answer was incorrect. And in my mind, this was my opportunity to learn. You never learn unless something is broken, something is wrong, something you have to fix. That's when you really learn something. So to close up that educational loop, that learning loop, I wanted to give you also why the wrong answers were wrong. So in my practice exams, every right answer explains why it's right, and every wrong answer is explained why it's wrong, so that you will understand if you chose CPU utilization, this is why that's the wrong answer. If you chose input voltage, that's why it's the wrong answer. If you chose cache hits, that's why it's the wrong answer. And if you're looking at this question and you don't even understand what a SAN happens to be, you can go all the way to the bottom of the answers, and I have a link back to the video that was used to create the original question, which includes all of these terms, all of these abbreviations, the acronyms, everything you need to know about the topics that are being covered. And whether you're watching this or using the PDF online, or whether you have the physical book, which of course are identical in content, but if you have it in a book, you can't really click the link. So I put a QR code there so you can easily find the video and go to it yourself. Once you've read through this, you understand why it's right and why it's wrong. You may not even realize that your PDF reader has a back button in it. You can click the back button and we're back to where we started. We can go to the next question that's on our list. That's my practice exams book. Maybe that's something that can help you for your exams. You can go through the details of this and learn more. I've even got a little video demo there at professormesser.com/core1pe that can give you more information on how our practice exams might help you prepare for your final exam on your Core 1 or Core 2. That might help you get that and pass those exams. And they are there. It's a book. It's a PDF. So you can take these over and over again. You can go through any question at any time. You can go back and forth over different questions. You can talk about the questions with other people. It's a great way to get and summarize exactly what you need to know all in one book. Something that might help you. Well, of course, during this entire details of this, if you start working through understanding the details of these exams, you're probably trying to figure out where's all these topics coming from? Where's all this information coming from? Well, it's coming directly from the official CompTIA exam objectives. Those objectives are available at the CompTIA website. Probably not a surprise there. The objectives themselves have everything you need to know about passing this exam. They give you a bulleted list of every topic you are expected to know. Certainly an important consideration if you're getting into the world of IT and you're trying to figure out, am I really ready to take this exam? Well, use this as your checklist. Go through every topic, and if you can check off every one of these topics, having explained it to yourself or to someone else, then you're ready to take the exam. But you may come across a topic and you think, external SATA, I'm not real clear on that one. Well, now you can highlight that one, go study up, and prepare even better for the exam that you're planning to take. These are free and they're available on the CompTIA website. That's right, they're free. You go to professormesser.com/objectives and you can download the objectives. I have a link that will take you over there, or just go to your favorite search engine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. It will probably be the first link that pops up in your search engine. That is exactly where you can go to get more information and understand exactly what's expected of you on your A+ exam. We do one of these study groups every month. This is not the end, of course. We have more coming in just a moment, so don't go anywhere. We've got another hour of Q&A where you're going to ask me questions. But we do these live study groups every month. We have another study group in 2 days on May the 8th. That's our Core 2 study group. You might want to come back for that one as well. And if we look into June, currently June 10th and June 12th is when we have planned for the next Core 1 and Core 2 study groups. I haven't decided yet if we will be moving over to the newer Core 1, Core 2, the 1201 and 1202. I expect we will, because we'll be at about that 2 or 3 month time frame for moving over with all of those. If you want to know when is this happening, where is it happening, what time is it happening, all of those details are at our calendar. Go to professormesser.com/calendar or check the events channel in our Discord server. All of that is available for you there. Well, although we're done with our first hour, stick around. We got more to come. This is the part where you can ask me questions in what we call our study group after show. Don't forget about our discounted vouchers. If you're in the U.S., Canada, or U.S. territory, why are you paying full price on the CompTIA website? I am a platinum CompTIA partner. There is no higher CompTIA partner than how I have been categorized in CompTIA. They give us some great discounts, and I pass those discounts on to you. Why not take advantage of them at professormesser.com/vouchers? Don't forget about our course notes, our practice exams, and much more at professormesser.com/1101success. And of course, if we're on social media, maybe we'll see you on social media too. Just find us there by typing in professormesser.com/ the name of the place you'd like to find us at, /Discord, /X, /YouTube, /LinkedIn, /Instagram, /Facebook, / wherever it is. And if we're not there, tell me, and I'll see about setting us up a little base camp there on whatever site that happens to be. Who knows? We never know what the next big site's going to be, do we? I like to kind of prepare for whatever the contingency might be. So a great place to go for that. Well, this ends our first hour of the study group. Stick around for our after show that is happening in just a few seconds. Thanks for joining us in the first hour. We will see you next time on the A+ study group. Okay, now it's time for me to adjust a few things on my side and get rid of that graphic. There we go. Hi, everybody. There was a comment earlier where somebody said, oh, he's doing this live. He's not reading a script. Brother, I never read a script. I don't write scripts. There are no scripts. My courses don't have scripts. I don't have scripts on the live stream. There's no scripts. Those take way too long to write. So you won't find me doing any scripts. And in fact, this is a perfect example of that, because how could I prepare for a script? Because we are going to take questions from you. Yes, indeed. We will be taking questions for the second hour of the study group anytime. You can put these in anytime you'd like. We have plenty of questions that come in thanks to you. You simply visit the link that we've been using this whole time, professormesser.com/QA. That will get you to the submission page. It's a little tab at the top of the page where you can go through and see what the differences, what the things are available at least to submit, so we can go through those. And I, on this side, will parse through the questions that you have sent. In fact, that's what I'm going to do right now, is head over to the questions that you have submitted. And you're asking me a lot of questions about the new version of the exam. We're going to quickly go through this because a number of you have been asking me about, well, I have your Core 1, the 1100 series materials. I'm thinking of taking the 1200 series materials. I need to be careful about the terms I'm using here. The older exams and the newer exams. I'm thinking of transitioning over to the newer exams. So what should I be doing? Are these the same? Are they different? Can I use my older study materials to study those? These are fine questions. These are things you should know. So one of the things I did was create a comparison. There are hundreds of bullets that are in those exam objectives, and I went through the new set of objectives and I tried to determine where have things changed, what topics have been added, what topics are now missing in the new version. Then it went back to the old version and I said, what topics in this old version are not making it to the new version? So there's a bit of things you have to think about. You not only have to think about what have they added to the new exam, you also have to think about what did they remove from the new exam, because you don't want to study things that are never going to show up on the exam. That's a waste of time. So I created what everybody needs in a presentation. It is a beautiful chart, a nice Venn diagram to be able to do that. The Venn diagram here, as you can tell, there's some interesting characteristics about this. There's a great story in a Venn diagram, and this one is no exception. You can see that there are two circles. The yellow circle on the left is for the 1101 exam. The blue circle on the right is for the 1201 exam. And anytime that there is similar information, yellow and blue make green. In the middle, the green is the information that is the same on both of these exams. And what's interesting about this Venn diagram, there's a lot of green. There's more green here than I think we've ever seen in an update to the A+ certification, because 87% of the exam contains exactly the same exam objectives. 87%. That is a huge number. Usually it's 70% or less. There's at least 30% overlap. And if you look at things like the Security Plus exam update that occurred last year, that's 50%, 50. So you don't want to be in that situation either. So this is one that there's a lot that's the same between these exams. And we've not really seen this before. But if you think about it, there is some there's something we can tie back to that makes sense when you start looking at these statistics. Let's talk about the stats first. If you're studying the 1101, there are 58 objectives on the 1101 out of the 396 objectives on the exam total that are exclusive. They're only found in the 1101. Now, notice that the number of objectives you need to know in the 1201 are 391. The two exams are basically the same size. And you can see these circles are almost the same size. The one on the right is slightly smaller. It's difficult to tell, but it really is. I did make them exactly 396 pixels high and 391 pixels high, just so you had a good representation of this. But they're so close, they look like they're the same size. So the number of objectives that are new, 49 objectives new on the exam. These two exams are very, very similar. They're 87% similar. That's how similar they are. Now, here's your problem. If you use materials designed for the 1101 to study for the 1201, everything in blue will be missed. And everything in yellow you studied for no reason. So there is, what we're really worried about is what we miss when we take the exam. So here, 13% of the exam are things you would miss. Is that enough to fail the exam? Is that enough? If you don't have that 13% of knowledge, is it enough to bring your score down enough that it's going to create a problem for you? That's very possible, because we don't know what the combination of questions might be. We don't know what topics they're going to pull. We don't know if these are things maybe you already know about or something you don't know about. You have different things to think about when it comes to taking these exams. And that's one of the reasons I always tell you, always study from materials that match the version of the exam you're planning to take. That way, you are studying exactly the right materials, and you don't have to worry about missing something or studying something unnecessarily. And that's why I always tell you, it might be a good idea if you have older materials to upgrade to a version. Now, also keep in mind, I have a lot of people that have come to me and said, well, I'm just going to take the 1201. Yeah, but you've been studying the 1101 for 6 months now. Why would you jump to a new exam when you still have another, at this point, almost 5 months, 4 months plus, to be able to study and finish the exam? You have until September 25th to finish these two exams. Why would you throw away 6 months of what you're doing? And I realize it's not a full 6 months because 87% of the exam is exactly the same, but you're still throwing away information. You're throwing away all the yellow part, and you're having to study the blue part. Why would you do that when you already have all the materials you need to pass the exam well before September ever gets here? Because as I mentioned earlier, if you take the 1100 series exams and you pass both of those, or you take the 1200 series exams and you pass both of those, the resulting certification is exactly the same. So you don't get anything newer or fresher or better or more wanted by employers. The employers don't really care what versions of the tests you took. All they care is if you are A+ certified. That's it. So take the version of exams that best gets you passing and earning your certification. That's really the first place you should consider when making that decision. Doesn't have to do with content, doesn't have to do with what's newer, doesn't have to do with what's older. None of that matters. The only part that matters is which way gives me the best possible chance of me passing both of these exams the first time. That's it. That's how my focus is for all of these. I did one of these for the 1201. That's the core one. Did one for the 1202. Ooh, different Venn diagram for the core 2 exam. Notice the core 2 exam, the newer version, a little bit bigger. That circle's a little bit larger. It's 580 objectives on the 1102 versus 665 on the 1202. I know it's hard to see me with my head up there in the corner, but that's what the number is. On both of these, there's very little that was dropped on the 1102 and a lot of information that was added, comparatively speaking. We do, in fact, have not just more objectives, but you can see that 18% of the exam is brand new. So almost 20% of the content is new. Certainly that's enough to fail the exam. So I tell you all the time, make sure You are studying, if you're taking the 1202 exam, make sure you study from materials specifically made for the 1202 exam. And in this case, still a pretty big green circle in the middle. 80% of this exam, the exam objectives are identical between both. So still a huge amount of overlap. Now, why is there so much that is the same between these exams? Well, we have to think back to 3.5 years ago when the 1101 and 1102 came out. At that point, Windows 11 was brand new. We were running both Windows 10 and Windows 11 on our networks. And now it's been 3 years. Normally, Microsoft gives us another Windows version by then. But Microsoft was in the middle of what they were considering to be Windows 11 forever. They even said, we're not going to have any new versions from here on. We're always going to have Windows 11, and we'll just keep updating Windows 11 with a .1, a .2, a .3, a .4, and we'll just keep going, but it will always be Windows 11 because we think this is the best we could ever do. There's nothing more we can add to this except add new features and fix bugs and give you .version updates. And they started down that road. They have said maybe that was a bad idea. They realized suddenly, oh, wait, there's revenue. When we create a new version, this brings in money. They're a corporation, so they've decided maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe we will have a Windows 12. Maybe we will have a Windows 14. Maybe we'll have Windows 15. Whatever it happens to be, they are now considering newer versions. But another thing happened from 3 years ago to now that caused Microsoft not to create a new version of Windows. And that was, of course, the lockdowns. Everything stopped for half a year, in some cases a whole year. It took us a long time to ramp back up, so no new Windows version was updated. So when the 1100 series came out, we had Windows 10 and Windows 11. When the 1200 series came out, we have Windows 10 and Windows 11. We have exactly the same scenario. That means nothing on the exam is new as it relates to Windows 10 or Windows 11. And that's why, in my mind, as I read through the objectives, because I have an entire set of spreadsheets that details every single objective. Was it dropped? Was it added? Is it the same? And it gives me more details about those. That's what I create before I make my videos. That tells me, as I was looking through those objectives, the operating system information is effectively the same between both of them. That is really why there's a big green circle in the middle. That's really what's going on. Now, if you were to look at I have a similar, these comparisons and a detailed breakdown of exactly what has changed between these versions is available on my website. In fact, I think I can bring it up here. Here we go. So there's the Professor Messer website. For example, if you go to the 220.1201 and you look at the Core 1 videos, this is the newer set. Oh, thanks, Google, for the ad popping up on the screen. So as we go to that screen, the 1201 videos, I have at the top of them what's new, what are the differences between the 1101 and the 1201. So if you wanted a summary or you wanted to see that information again, I wrote a whole article that gives you, there's your Gantt chart, there's the Venn diagram, and of course you can blow it up so you can see it on the screen. And then I go through every single domain. I tell you exactly what topics were dropped, and then I tell you on the 1201 which topics were added. So if you want more detail about what's behind those Venn diagrams, this is what's behind them. I documented everything, not just for the Core 1, but I did it for the Core 2 as well. So you can find all of that on my website, something that might help you as you're going through and trying to find what are the differences between all of these. That might help you determine what the differences might be. And if you started with one and you've really decided, no, I'm going to move to a new version, maybe you just don't have time to finish everything before September. Now you can look at a detailed understanding of what things were thrown out, what things were added, and maybe you can just study the delta on that one. That's not a great way to study, but you could. You could go through the same process I went through for figuring out the details. Hopefully that can give you some perspective, some idea on what might be good to study for. And maybe that will give you a little bit more information that can help you make a decision about which one of these should I do, the 1100 series or the 1200 series. We got quite a bit to go through from there. Well, let's now go back to the questions that you can submit. This is our after show where you can put any question you would like into our queue. I will look at the questions that you are submitting. We'll be able to figure out the details of what you might want to know about. So we have looked at a lot of information. By the way, tons of questions here on the list. Thank you so much for sending these in, by the way. Here's a question. We were talking about this whole time, sort of talking about the exam and what we would do on this exam. But let's take a step back a bit, because I think my good friend Anonymous has a good question here for us. Anonymous asks, do you think it would be possible for someone with no experience but some networking knowledge to get an A+ and Network Plus certification in 6 months? This is a common question, which is, how long does this take? How quickly can I do this? And at least we have some context here, because the next question I usually ask is, I don't know, how much do you already know? Because if you already have built your own computers, you already have a familiarity with Windows, maybe you've already used Mac OS, maybe you even work in a help desk already, maybe you work in an IT department, maybe you're already in the industry and you're working on this, but you need the A+, or you need the Network Plus, or you need the Security Plus, and you want to know, how long is this going to take? So everybody has a different knowledge base they bring to the table. Everybody has a different way of learning and a different speed of learning. Some people can read a paragraph and they've got it, and they can walk around with that paragraph in their brain for months. I am not that person, but I've seen these people, and they are very good and very quick at studying. There are other people like me that I like to read the paragraph, then I like to see the paragraph in action, maybe in a video. Then I like to do it myself, do a lab, so that I can really understand it at a very detailed level. So it might take me 6 months to complete my studies for a single exam, because that's the way I work. So it's hard to put a specific time frame, but I can give you some averages. On average, for the A+, it takes people 2 to 3 months on average to complete their studies for a single exam. And of course, for A+, you need to do 2 exams. That means an average of 4 to 6 months to complete your A+ studies. I think that's a pretty good number for people that are studying from scratch, from knowing nothing, 2 to 3 months each exam. Because A+, of course, is 2 exams. You're really asking a question about finishing 3 exams in 6 months. It's a relatively aggressive time frame. But if you were to somehow compress that down to 2 months for each one of these, well, maybe you can make that happen then. That fits 2, 4, 6. Math works, right? We've got 6 months of studies there. Network Plus is a different animal, of course. Some people think Network Plus is the hardest exam between A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. I'm from a networking background, so I don't really have a way to tell. I don't really have a way to figure that one out, because I've been doing networking forever. It's hard to think about, how would this affect me? I have to do that all the time when I'm building my courses. If I came at this with no knowledge, what would really tell me the information I need to know? And I think overall, I think Network Plus is probably a 2 to 3 month time frame as well. I think that's a pretty good average for that one. So it's really now all about how much time you spend studying. If you spend an hour a day, it takes a certain amount of time. If you spend 2 hours a day, it takes half the time. So there is a difference not only in content and experience, but there's also a difference in how you apply the time for studying. And that's an important consideration, because if you're going through this list and you're trying to determine how long can I fit this into 6 months? As I've already mentioned, that's a very aggressive schedule, but it is absolutely doable. That's a pretty doable schedule. 6 months. That's pretty good. I've had people come to my site where their manager gave them a copy of the objectives and said, you need to have this done next week. I said, well, your manager's crazy, or they hate you. One of those, they want you to leave. They want you to find another job, clearly, or they just don't understand. They think you can do one of these and get it done in a week and you're finished. So it may take a little bit more time with that manager to help them understand, the average for both of these is 2 to 3 months, right? Right? So you can sometimes, maybe a week was too short. Let's change the schedule for something like that. You do at least have that you can work through. So I think for someone with no experience and some networking knowledge, which is what you put anonymous into this list, getting an A+ in Network Plus in 6 months, it's doable, but you're going to need to be very directed. You're going to need to set some specific time frames for study. You're going to need to make sure that you set up the objectives and you go through them methodically so that you cover everything. And I think 6 months is just fine. I think you'll be good to get all of those done. So that's my opinion of it. Yours might be a little bit different once you get into it, but hopefully that will help you understand where I think most averages might be and what I've seen with the, thousands of people that have come through my website that have studied for this. Those are the numbers that I see, and those continue to be the numbers going forward. Let's go through more questions and things that you have on your view of this. Let's keep going through the list. Here's a pretty good one. I love this question. It's a simple question, but it is a quandary. It is a good question to think about. This is from Freeman, who asks, do you need to get every question on the exam correct to pass it? What is a passing score? Oh, it sounds like a simple question, doesn't it? Let's start with the easy one first. Do you need to get every question correct on the exam to pass? Nope. You have. In fact, I will bring up the view we had earlier just so we can summarize it. And we'll do this because it's the same for both the 1100 series and the 1200 series. I'm going to give you these numbers anyway so we can kind of step through them. Or maybe I'm not. Maybe we are going to. There it is, right there. So for the 1201 and 1202, which is exactly the same as the 1101 and 1102, the exam itself is a scoring scale. The grade you would get on the exam is between 100 and 900. Not between 0 and 100. Not between 0 and 1,000, not between 100 and 1,000. Nope, it's between 100 and 900. I believe this is a way that CompTIA can kind of keep their grading process more of a secret, make it more difficult, if not impossible, to reverse engineer. So already we have to keep that in mind, that it's this odd scale. It's 800 points. Think of it that way. You have 800 points that you have to get right on the exam. And what we believe is that each question on the exam is worth a different number of points. So the first question, multiple choice question, may be worth 5 points. The next multiple choice question may be worth 7 points. The next multiple choice question may be worth 1 point. We don't know. We know they aren't the same. That's the only thing we know, but we don't know what every question is worth. And by the way, you'll never know. They don't tell you this. So that makes the process a little bit, much more difficult, if not impossible, to reverse engineer. The scores that you need to earn on the Core 1 exam, but on a scale, I don't have even fixed my numbers here. They're incorrect, everybody. So we're going to do this in real time. The 1201, you need to score a 675 on a scale from 100 to 900. On the 1202, you need to score a 700 on a scale from 100 to 900. So the first question you asked, Freeman, do you have to get every question correct on the exam to pass? Thankfully, no. Thankfully, you can miss some, but you can't miss a lot. And if your score on the Core 1 goes below a 675, you have not passed the exam. You have failed the exam. You would have to take it over to pass it, to hope to pass it. So that is an important consideration. So thankfully, it's not a 100% or nothing. It is a pass-fail in that your score doesn't follow you around. You don't use that as a determination of how much A+ certified you are. You have either passed the exam or you have not passed the exam. Sort of the way it fits there. And those were the passing scores. The challenge, though, and I get this all the time, is, okay, how do I calculate that? How many questions can I miss? I don't know. Each question is worth a different number of points. The number of questions you get on the exam is different than anybody else. Your set of questions you also get is from a pool of questions. So the questions you get on your exam are different than the questions that someone else gets on their exam. If you have to take the same exam twice, you will get 2 different exams because they're just randomized every time you start the exam. And if you don't pass the first time, you need a voucher every time you take the exam, or you need CompTIA sells special expensive vouchers that have a retake associated with them. Just a wonderful money-making thing that they've got set up there. But it's just from them. They're the only ones who have that type of voucher, that the voucher itself can be used more than once. Most vouchers you will find are vouchers you use one time. And I recommend getting the vouchers that do not have a retake. I believe it's a waste of money. I think you should pass the first time. I think that's your focus. And from an insurance perspective, if you do the risk analysis and the cost of the risk and how difficult it would be just to study all the exam objectives, I don't think it's necessary to have a retake. I understand why it's there, and I understand why many people like to use them, but I don't use them for myself. We'll put it that way. And I don't think it's really worth the money personally, but it's sometimes it's like a blanket. It's like a security blanket. And I get it. So I won't argue with that if you want to get the retake vouchers on that one, but you do need a separate voucher for each exam. So you need one voucher for your Core 1, you need a separate voucher for your Core 2, and if you don't have any type of retake policy on your vouchers, if you fail the exam, you need another voucher. So there is a cost associated with something like that. Another one of those things to consider as you are working through the details of your A+ exam. Let's do some more questions. We have some time. We're not quite at the top of the hour. So let's go through these. There's a couple of things we can work through. There's a couple of, let's look at this question. We're going to focus on this question in different ways. This question is not on your screen. The question's now on your screen. There we go. What is a practical way to study? Now I've got all my pictures in a picture in the wrong place. Let's see if I can get out of the way this time. What's a practical way to study troubleshooting without access to hardware? There's a good question. If you're somebody who is working on your Core 1, there's a lot of hardware in the Core 1. There's a whole domain called hardware. So we know there is. It's your motherboard, all the devices that plug into the motherboard. The performance-based question we had today, for example, was a very good example of understanding the hardware. And in the Core 2 exam, it's more about operating systems. There's obviously a section on security. There's a section on troubleshooting, but we do need to know about operating systems in that Core 2 exam. Pardon me. So as you are trying to decipher the hardware, especially if you don't have a computer in front of you, you've never opened a computer, you've never worked with this hardware on your system, well, that's why I do the YouTube videos. So you can see the hardware. You can see me plugging it in. You can see us taking apart the back of a laptop. You can see us replacing things inside of the laptop. That's what we do with that video series, so that if you don't have that hardware available, you can at least go through the process of seeing someone else work with that hardware. Another thing that is useful for the Core 2 exam is that you might not have Windows available. That might not be available to you. But there are evaluation versions of Windows that you can install into a virtual machine. So if you're using Linux or you're using Mac OS or you're using a different version of Windows, you could launch very easily a virtual machine and use that version of Windows on your existing desktop. It's a great way to do studies. That way you can change things in that system. You can modify the operating system. You can do troubleshooting of the boot process, and all of those things you do in the VM don't affect your production system. They don't affect your main machine. And when you're finished messing around with that operating system or you break something, you can go back to a previous snapshot instantly, and now it's back up and running again. And when you turn it off, now you're back to your old computer. You're back to the system you were running originally on that desktop. So it's a very common way. Whenever you're watching, in fact, me work with Windows on my videos, I was just editing the new set of videos for the Core 2 where I'm doing things at the command line. I'm using Windows commands. I'm doing networking commands. We're doing trace routes and pings. And I'm showing you this information on the screen. I demonstrate those on the screen in real time so that you can do it on yours as well. Well, that's all on a Windows machine, but it's really in a Windows VM. Let me show you. Let's bring it up, shall we? I use Parallels. I'm using Mac OS as my main operating system. And so I want to show you, let's bring this over. There we go. And I've got quite a few VMs running here. So here's my Parallels front end. I've got a bunch of VMs that are listed on this list. But right at the top is my Windows 11. I'm just going to click that Windows 11 and start it up, and I'll bring this window back over. Here's Windows 11 running as a window. Windows, I've got Mac OS back here in the background. I've got Windows right here in the foreground. And this is a Windows machine. So let's log in. Yes, I've set up my Windows with no password because this is the test system I use for the things that we're doing here. Although I can start up a separate Windows server and connect this Windows 11 machine to an Active Directory infrastructure, which you will see when you go through the course. But here's Windows 11. Now this is Mac OS, so it's got these weird Mac OS Windows bars at the top. Let's get rid of them. Click there. Now it's gone. So from the perspective of anyone running Windows, this is Windows. You don't even know Mac is anywhere on the screen. And you can come down and do a CMD, and you can look at a directory of things, and you can ping things on the internet. There it is. It's Windows. It's really Windows. It's really a native Windows running. It's just in a virtual machine. Now we can, of course, at any time, go back to the menus that we have. I'll pop out of this and we'll get rid of the full screen piece. And you can see I've even got Windows here for the virtualization aspect of it. But what a great way to study. So you can run anything you like as your main desktop, and then at any time, you can bring up and work with your Windows environment. Running VMs changes everything about how you study. Because if you run across a question about Linux, let's just start up a Linux VM. Well, let's do that. Like, for example, let's see if I've got one. I think I was working with one the other day. I was setting up a test server on Alma 9. I'm running an ARM. I'm running Apple Silicon as my CPU. So I can't use an Intel-based VM. I have to use a distribution that is made to work with an ARM processor. So, of course, you recall learning about the ARM processor in your Core 1 studies. And this is why, because you will run across operating systems that do this. So this is my Linux operating system. Let's see if I can remember what password I used for this. Did I get it right? Nope. How about this one? Now we go through the list. Oh, I think it might have worked. Last login tells me that one failed recently. There was one failed login attempt since this last successful. And then it starts up the Linux operating system. So now I'm running Linux on my desktop. So I don't know. I don't think I've ever started this Linux distribution. So this may take a second to start up. But you see the process of starting up a virtual machine, very easy. And of course, if I want to pull in another VM, I just tell it to start up and go, and we're running a new VM. Oh, I know you couldn't see anything, so I was zoomed up on it. I was zoomed up like this. So I'll zoom out a little bit. Yep, it's you can't see it because my big head's in the way, but it's Alma Linux. There it is. And I can run different things from the Alma Linux front end, being able to do different options, different settings, I mean, it's Linux. There's nothing different, unique, nothing new that you'd have to do here. We've got other options on the screen. Let's pop open a new terminal window. We can't DIR, it's not Windows, but because Linux has aliases built into this, running an LS or running a DIR will show you similar things. And you can see, but it is Linux. You can use the Linux commands. We can use the top utility. We can do all of those things that come with a Linux front end. So you've got now a lot of different options available once you start playing around with VMs. It's also a great lab to do. If somebody ever talks to you in an interview and talks to you about running a virtual machine, running a VMware instance, taking a snapshot, you can do all of this on your own machine. VMware is available for you to use for free on your Windows machine and your Mac OS machine. You've got VirtualBox, which is also free. That's from Oracle. So you've got lots of different options for virtualization. That is a very practical way to study both troubleshooting operating systems and in some ways hardware on a system without actually seeing the hardware. Yeah, I know we are seeing double there, aren't we? Boop, there it's gone. It's because I got too many buttons back here to work with, but at least you now know you got some options to work on a virtualization. And it's a great way to not only extend your study capabilities for A+, learning how to use virtualization on your desktop is an incredibly useful skill that will help you not only for this exam, but for many things that you're going to do in your IT career. Let's keep going through the list of what's here. This is an interesting question because it's somewhat subjective. Is Core 1 considered denser in terms of content? Denser. I think if you look at the 1100 series exams, I think what people like to see, or what trips people up with the Core 1 exam, is that there's a lot of things to memorize. There's a bunch of port numbers, and then there's a troubleshooting process, and then there's I think the malware cleaning is in Core 2, so we're going to have to learn that for Core 1. But there's a lot of things you have to memorize in Core 1. People get very focused on the memorization part. One of the things you notice on the 1200 series, though, a lot of those things have been changed. The number of port numbers is slightly smaller, if not the same. It might be about approximately the same. But they got rid of a lot of the things that normally you would have to memorize. For example, the steps for laser printers, they don't exist in the 1200 series. The troubleshooting steps, they don't exist on the 1200 series to Core 1. So I think CompTIA recognized that there was an aspect of this that was taking away from your knowledge and sort of forcing you down a road of rote memorization. And they don't want that either. So what they did on the latest exam is they got rid of the rote memorization for a number of those, and they made it a little bit more tempered with both Core 1 and Core 2. There are still things you have to memorize. There's still things you need to know, but not as much. So I think they're very aware of what it takes for you to learn everything you need to learn for this exam. And they want you to learn the broader topics. They want you to learn more about troubleshooting and the process of troubleshooting and the steps you would go through and what the best way to resolve problems might be, instead of you spending all of your time studying a set of numbers or set of letters that doesn't help you. Also, don't have to memorize every wireless network version that's ever been created that we no longer use. So you no longer have to know the details of 802.11a and 802.11b and 802.11g and 802.11int. All those, they're all gone. That's just all gone now. So yeah, Core 1, I think in the 1200 series is pared down a little bit better than the 1100 series. So that's one of those things, though, when you move from version to version, it always gives CompTIA a chance to optimize the information and make it more applicable to fixing things and resolving things, because ultimately that's what this certification is about, is getting you ready to step into that role to solve these problems. Memorizing a bunch of information usually is not the best way to do that. I very quickly stuck my in-ear monitor in when we began this. Normally I run it down the back of my shirt so it never moves. So of course it's moving all over the place today. Somebody was mentioning earlier, what in-ear monitor is that? If you want to know about any of the things that are in our studio, there's obviously a bunch of stuff here, crazy looking mice and ridiculous keyboards and funny video switchers, and the audio that we've got now is just a bunch of colors. I don't know what's going on there. But if you want to know what is all that, what are all these things you're using, we have them on our website. Go to professormesser.com/studio and you'll see what in-ear monitors I'm using, what we've got going, all the things we've got going here. So there is a lot. I don't think I have the clock as part of this. The clock is an app on my iPad called Clock Phone. One word, Clock Phone. Clock Phone. Who makes Clock Phone? Let's see if we can figure out who makes Clock Phone. Where are my options? I don't know. You click one thing and it brings up a bunch of nonsense. So I don't know. Maybe I should put that in there too. It does kind of look like a crazy setup. I grant you, it's a lot of monitors. Usually these two on the right aren't ever turned on unless we're doing a live stream or doing everything else. The camera is here. It's hard to see, me see if I can bring this up. So the camera is right there. You can see it right there. So a relatively new camera, just updated the camera and just updated the mixer. So there's a lot that's been updated over time here, but it's there. There's a lot there that is, and it seems dark in here because it is dark in here. There are lights, you can't see them, but there are, and I have documented the type of lights I use, but everything's on the desk. I think that was the thing that I wanted to do. I used to have a lot of our equipment that was in a separate, I called it my data center. It was a closet. So I used to have it a 19-inch rack that was in a closet. But now everything's sort of shrunk down. Now you can fit everything in one place. So everything is on my desk now. Everything is inside of my desk. You can't really see it too well from this view, but on the left and right side of my chair are 19-inch racks, sort of quarter size 19-inch racks that are behind they're behind a door. I don't know if you can hear the hum. I just opened the door up on the right side. You can kind of see everything down here a little bit better because it's not being hidden. So there's some fans that are in there, but it's also soundproofed. So as soon as I close the door, it's silent. It's so quiet now. Okay, so that's sort of how that works. The type of monitors I'm using, these are Thunderbolt monitors, Apple display in the front. This is an LG display, a little bit older LG display. So that's what that is as we work through them. I know it's a weird angle because this is my bird cam. Hey, bird cam. It's sort of up there a little bit higher than where I am. So it's an odd, and it's sort of tilted a little, like the whole, are we on a boat? What's going, I don't know. It's just the way the camera works there, and having them on the view. But these Shure in-ear monitors are just phenomenal. They're very flat. They're very simple. It's like a $99 in-ear monitor, but it works great. I did get, it's not in the list, but I have a different foam-based plug that's on the in-ear monitor, so I can leave it in here for hours, and it just never creates a problem. You have to, it's one of those things where you sort of have to find the exact combination of things depending on what you're trying to do. And I think we've got a pretty good set here. Let's keep going through the list of questions you have, because I do have, even though we're top of the hour, I'll squeeze a couple more in here very quick. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one because a lot of you are working with vouchers. You're working through the idea of using vouchers on your exam. Sean says, studying for the 1101, 1102, purchase vouchers from you. Thank you extremely. When you purchase vouchers from our website, they are discounted over the vouchers you would get from CompTIA, but CompTIA does give us a little bit of a commission for doing that. So it's a win-win in my mind, and it does help support what we're doing here. So thank you, Sean, for that. How do the tests work, as I'm considering purchasing the test before I schedule the exam? If you bought the vouchers before the 1200 came out, can you take the 1200? So let's talk about vouchers. And I'm going to do this sort of on the CompTIA website, I think, because that would be a great place to go to sort of get all of these things covered. You're going to see this. If you go to the CompTIA store, which is where a number of you buy your voucher that is not discounted. Can I do this on here? I don't know if I... Oh, yes, we could do this on here. Good. So, in fact, they have... Their store right now is not quite right. I'll explain in a moment. There's like 2 vouchers listed here. There's an A+ voucher listed here for the 220 1201 or 1202, and another voucher listed for the 220 1101 and 1102, and they're different prices. 1200 series is more expensive. They are in the process of converting over their website right now to be able to support a new set of voucher prices. They update their prices every year. This is not unusual. They have not updated their prices actually in about a year and 3 months. So they're a little over the time they usually use, and they usually update them about 3 to 4%. I have not gotten the newer pricing yet, so I don't know what that update will be, but when they make the update, I will let you know what those happen to be. What's interesting, though, is an A+ voucher is an A+ voucher is an A+ voucher. Any voucher you have that says A+ can be applied to take any available A+ exam. There's no such thing as an 1100 series voucher. There's no such thing as a 1200 series voucher, even though on the CompTIA website, they are labeled that way. If you buy this voucher, or you buy this voucher, you get the same voucher. I don't know why they're different prices. It's the same voucher. And I've confirmed this with my representative at CompTIA, just so you know, because when I saw that pricing, I said, are you changing things? Do we now have a Core 1 voucher and a Core 2 voucher? They said, no, same voucher. We just haven't gotten the pricing fixed yet on the website, primarily because CompTIA does not run the website. This is really Pearson that's doing the website. So that's why you're seeing different prices on the website. The important thing to keep in mind, though, it's the same voucher. If somebody says, here's your A+ voucher, you could go use it for today. As we sit here, you could use it for the 2201101, the 2201102, the 2201201, or the 2201202. That's it. You could use them for all four of those. One single A+ voucher can be applied to any of those four exams. Obviously, if you're going to take 2 exams, you would need 2 vouchers. And they would have to be from the same series, again, to be able to do that. So that's the good part, is if you bought a voucher 6 months ago and you did not update, didn't study, and you're thinking, I'm going to take the 1200 series now. I've decided, even though I bought this voucher before the 1200 series came out, I now want to take the 1200 series exams. Great. You can use the same voucher. No problem. As long as you haven't used it, you can apply it towards the 1200 series exam. So at least you know what those differences are in all of those. And that's why, absolutely, if Sean's bought these vouchers, you want to take the 1200 series, you can absolutely use them for the 1200 series. You will notice on my site, I have specifically put on my vouchers page. Let's go to my vouchers page, shall we? I don't know why I'm talking to it when I can just show you. On my vouchers page, if you go to the A+ voucher section, it tells you, click, click, click. It brings it up and says it's applicable towards any available A+ exam. Some people would send me a note after that and going, do you mean like the new ones too? So I added some additional text that says, including the 2201101, the 2201102, the 2201201, or the 2201202. So you can use that single voucher, same price it's always been, towards any of those 4 exams. Absolutely. And it can be used whether you're going to a physical testing center or whether you're testing online. Does not matter. Same voucher works for everything, which is great. Makes it so easy. You don't have to worry about it. It just works. Someone else said, can you transfer a voucher to someone else? For that, I'm going to, on that same page, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and I'm going to show you the section that nobody reads called Important Terms and Conditions. And it tells you all of the important things you do need to know. For example, vouchers are non-refundable and non-returnable because I email you a code. Once that code is out in the world, we can't take the code back. That's one of those problems. It's a digital problem, really. That's why they're non-refundable, non-returnable. But one of the things they say in here, and then we'll talk about the vouchers and how they work. These are the terms and conditions that are from CompTIA. Vouchers may not be resold is really the only thing in here that talks about giving the voucher to someone else. Now, that's great because your name and your email and who you are is not attached to the voucher in any way. So it's very common, for example, for teachers to buy blocks of vouchers. They have 20 students that are taking the exam. They'll buy 20 vouchers, and I'll just send them 20 codes. And then they can send those vouchers out to their students. Here's one for you, one for you, one for you, one for you, one for you. Their name or email or anything else is not associated with the voucher. The students can even swap the vouchers if they want to. They're the same. All vouchers are the same from that perspective. So that's good that your name is not associated with these. So it makes it easy for one person can buy the voucher and then give the voucher to someone else, and that's perfectly fine. But because there's no link, although it says vouchers may not be resold, you could resell them and no one would ever know. So I guess that particular term and condition is one that's really on you, not to follow. They don't want you to resell these vouchers unless you are someone who is authorized to resell the vouchers like myself. So that's why, as we work through these. So Technically, yeah, you can give the voucher to anybody else. You can transfer the voucher to someone else. As long as there's not a cost associated with it, you're still within the terms of conditions. But sometimes people resell their vouchers to someone else. I think it's kind of risky buying a resold voucher from a third party, but you could. And technically, there's no way to know it was resold, just so you're aware. Sort of full disclosure on that one. So hopefully that gives you, that was a lot of talking about vouchers, Sean. So hopefully you got some of the information you were looking for. I appreciate you sending that question in. When will you have, this one is from John. We got a couple more in the chat room like this. When will you have practice tests for the 1201 and 1202 exams available to purchase? And have you ever been to New Orleans? So those are the two questions. Let's take both of them, shall we? So the first one, when we have practice tests for the 1201 and 1202 exams. So if you look at our website, our 1201 course, video course is online and available. Our 1201 course notes, there they are also available. So we're getting there. 1202 videos are finishing up, and 1202 course notes are already done. So right after we finish up our video courses, we create and update our practice exams books. So there's no date on these. As soon as I finish the videos, we roll right into the practice exam updates. Those usually go pretty quick. And because there are so few changes between exams, there's not going to be a huge amount of updates in that one. So that's good. It will speed up the process, but I don't have any specific dates. When can you expect it? In the coming weeks. That's the best I can really tell you. There's no formal release date. I don't set any release dates for myself. I realize that it would help you from a scheduling perspective to know exactly when is that book going to be released. But the problem that I've found is that if you set an arbitrary date on when you think it's going to happen, that two things either happen. You either miss the date and you disappoint a lot of people, or you push yourself to make that date and you've now created a product that is not as good as it could be. So what I prefer doing is saying it doesn't exist until I release it. We completely have intentions of creating practice exams for the Core 1 and Core 2. They're very popular. We will be doing them. I can tell you that right now. I've already started sort of the foundational work and what I need to do to get this done. But the practice exams themselves, the specific date on when they will be released, can't tell you because I don't know. And I won't release them until they are done. Which is, I know that's sort of it's not a great way to run something when people are expecting it, but that's the foundation of what we do with our training materials has never been about push it out to be the first, push it out to be as fast as you can. That's not what we're trying to do here. We can do it fast, but then it's not good. So that's not what I'm trying to do either. I want to create the highest quality training materials possible. I want our training materials to be that Cadillac of training materials. I don't want it thrown out there. I don't want it to have a bunch of odd grammar. Things don't match up. You've seen these on other sites. You've seen how bad things can be on other sites with other providers. I don't want to be that. And for some reason, there is a philosophy in the industry, not just the training industry, but a lot of different industries, on just doing it good enough. The goal is to get people to buy them. So you just do them good enough so people will buy them. Well, that's not what we're doing. I'm putting my name on these. I'm literally putting my picture on them. So I'm not just going to give you good enough. I want to give you something that is a quality set of questions that really gives you something you can't get anywhere else, that is written from the perspective of someone who's been in the industry, who has taken these exams, who wants to give you the same experience in this book as you get when you walk into the exam center for a lot of reasons, not just to make you more knowledgeable in the topics, but to make you more comfortable when you're taking the exam itself. And I think in many ways we've succeeded with our current set of practice exams because I don't set arbitrary dates. When they're done and I feel that they're good enough for you to see, I will release them. And never before. They will never be a just good enough. As far as I'm running this crazy thing, whatever this thing is that I'm running, it will always be that way. So that's the idea behind it. I guess some of it is pride, but it's more about how are you supposed to learn if you get substandard learning materials? Why don't we take it up a notch? Why don't we force other people to make their training materials better? And I think this is our chance to do that. So that's what we're doing. I don't know if they'll make it better or not, but that's the idea. I know we're way past time, by the way, and my voice knows it, but we're going to go through, I think I saw one or two more questions in here to make this happen. We've got more in here. Here's a quick one from Ross who says, hey, how long before you have a playlist for the new version of the test? What a good question. We need a play. I'm assuming you mean a YouTube playlist. So we're going to go to professormesser.com/YouTube, and we're going to see what comes up to the YouTube channel for Professor Messer. And you will notice we have a number of playlists in here. And you can see there's a lot here. Where's the other big playlist? I have playlists here. Why are they not showing up on this page? You bring up a good point. I was going to point them out to you and say, here they are. But if we go to the playlist tab, they are there. I'm going to put them on the main page so you can see them. But right here in the very first two on the playlist page is the 220.12.02 and the 220.12.01 right here. So you've got the playlists are all right there. In fact, we'll have a look at the training course. So here's the training course videos, and here's all the how to pass your exam and all the things that are there's the whole set. The mini video. There's a lot there. There's plenty there. So I will do you even one better, and I will add them to the main page so they end up being right on the top. The current CompTIA training courses, we'll make sure they're all right there at the top. In fact, I need to get rid, now the 008 is done. We can get rid of that one. The 601 should be finished soon because a lot of these are worldwide. Although we don't have those exams available in the US, there are exams that are still being offered around the world. So I do keep them somewhat visible on my YouTube channel just so you can see that they are there. It's an important part of that. So that's where they are. That might help you as you work through that. We did answer the question about the exams, so we'll put that one there. Let's keep going through the list. This is, and somebody also asked, do I have that information I showed that was showing the difference between the 1100 series and the 1200 series? I also have the same articles available on my website for showing the differences between the Network Plus versions and the Security Plus. So they are on my website. If you have problems finding it, I need to make them more apparent on the page, and I am working on that. But if you don't see them, they're usually in the frequently asked questions section on my site, but I can absolutely, if you can't find them, just let me know. Send me a contact us and we'll make sure you get your hands on those so you know where they happen to be. Let's keep going through our list of questions. I need to pick one good one as we finish up here. Boy, a lot of great questions you guys have submitted. Thank you so much for sending these in. There was a good one here at the top that I want to be sure we cover. There was, okay. I want to address this. This is a good question, and it has sort of a broader answer that I wanted to address. This is from my good friend Anonymous, who asks, does it matter which exam you take? I'm assuming here you're referring to the 1100 series or the 1200 series. Do jobs look for which one you have, or are they just satisfied you have the certification itself? And I did speak to this earlier. I talked about that it doesn't matter whether you take the 1100 series and get your A+, or the 1200 series and get your A+, because it's the same A+. There's no version number on your A+ certification. The A+ certification doesn't say, oh, you only took the 1100 series. You're not as good as the 1200 people. And the 1200 series certification doesn't say, neener, you're so much better than anybody else, because it's the same A+. In fact, let me put it in a different context for you. If you took your A+ exams 10 years ago and you earn your A+ certification on the 901 and 902 exam, and every 3 years you've updated the certification, which requires you to know what those new things are on the exam every 3 years. And you continue to renew your certification and renew your certification and renew your certification. You are just as A+ certified as someone who passes their 1201 and 1202 exams today. It's the same A+ certification. So there is no difference in what exams you are taking and what the resulting certification is. It's really the version of the exams is really what questions are being asked of you. But the certification you earn is identical. So that makes it also, it's another great way to even things out for everybody. So it doesn't matter. Just make sure that both exams that you take are from the same series. As I mentioned before, don't take the 1101 and think you can take the 1202. Nope. You have to take both exams from the same series, which is why you have to take both exams for the 1100 series before they retire on September 25th. Let me give you a what if. What if you pass the 1101 and you get to September and you're just not able to pass the 1102? And it becomes September 26th and the 1102 exam is no longer available for you to take. You've now just cleared the slate. The core one that you passed earlier, effectively worthless. Effective. Not totally, and I'll explain why in a moment, but you now have to start over. You now have to take the 1201, even though you passed the 1101. You now have to take the 1201. And the reason you're not technically starting over is because, as I mentioned, about 83% of the exam is exactly the same. So you really only need to study the deltas. So more than ever, that is an advantage you have with this particular transition period that you don't normally get. So that's an advantage, I think, for all of us. We don't want to be in the position of needing that advantage, but if we're stuck in that position, it's nice having that there. The other part is that now you have to start over and you have to take both your Core 1 and Core 2 from the 1200 series. So that's the idea. We have to be aware of those dates so that we know how to plan out the process for us. So just make sure you work through that. And although people have talked about the renewal process, it's easier than ever to renew these certifications. CertMaster CE is a very common way to renew. But if you're trying to determine what renewal process is best for you, I've got a video on this. It's in the YouTube video description of this video. That's how to renew your A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus certification in just a few hours. But I even tell you how to do it other ways too that may take more than just a few hours. So it's really an overview of all of the different ways to renew your cert, but I give you one that's probably the most popular and one of the easiest ways to renew. And you can renew in a day, which is nice. There have been people that have come to our website and said, I just realized my A+ certification expires tomorrow. So if I don't renew this cert, I've got to take both exams again to get the certification again. Yep, that's true. So they said, well, how can I renew in 6 hours or 12 hours or whatever today? How can I renew today? Well, it's too late to collect CEUs. And we can, of course, try to figure out, have you taken a training class over the last 3 years? Have you been to an industry event? I mean, we can do that, but in this case, the person had not. So they just took CertMaster CE. They finished it in a few hours. They submitted it. They were done. And they came back the next day and said, yep, I got renewed. Just took my CertMaster CE. So there's different ways to do it. And being able to do that. They're always updating and thinking about the renewal process, making it easy, but they also want to make sure you know the information that you need to know. It's important as well. So another one of those ideas that you would work through. I never answered if I've been to New Orleans. Nolans. I have not. Well, I have for business mostly. I have been for pleasure. In college, I went to New Orleans. It really has not recovered since then. No, that's not true. I have not recovered since then. But there was, I've been there a few times over the years. We've had events that we've done there. There have been things that we've done from a business perspective in New Orleans. What a great town. Really do enjoy it, but haven't been back lately. I need to get over there. I used to live in North Florida, and it was relatively easy to drive over. Now I'm in Central Florida. Now it's a little bit longer just to get out of the state. So that's a flight, I think, to get over there. But it's always a good time, and such nice people there as well. Love the whole area, and the food, amazing. If you ever have a chance to go there, it's a fantastic place to go, a lot of fun. So hopefully that's good. Before we leave, some folks have also asked on my site if you have previous versions of my course notes, previous versions of my practice exams, and you've decided, I want to upgrade from a previous version to the current version, but do we have to buy it all over again? Thankfully, you do not. There is an upgrade discount available. If you don't see an upgrade discount available from your member login, just click the members link at the top of the website, log into your page, your member site, and at the top, it will tell you you've got this version of the course notes and you can upgrade to this newer version at a discount. You just click a link and you can upgrade. If you don't see the upgrade you're looking for, or that process, it's just not, you can't remember your login and it's too much, just send me an email. Just send me a contact us link from the top of the website and I will make sure you have an upgrade link. I can even create a custom upgrade link for you. Save you at least a little bit money if you're moving from one version to another, because there's a big difference in material. But since you've already were working on it before and you've made an investment in what you've done here at Professor Messer, I want to honor that investment and give you some upgrade options that are at least discounted, save you at least a little bit of money, which would be nice. So it's another one of those things to think about. Well, my voice is telling me that we have hit the top of the hour and then some, so I think that's probably a good place to start shutting down the things that we have here and coming to an end of another, what I think has been a very successful study group. Thank you so much for joining us in the first hour. We always have a good time with the Q&A, and come on back 2 days from now on Thursday, the same time, we're doing the Core 2 study group. And I've got a whole new set of questions for that one as well. Always fun. And thank you so much for your questions in the second hour. If you have other questions you would like to ask, we will be doing another after show at the end of the study group in 2 days. Glad to answer your questions there as well. Thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget about our course notes, our practice exams, and our discounted vouchers on our website at professormesser.com. If you're ever wondering when the next live event is going to be, it's always on our calendar at professormesser.com/calendar. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everybody.